representing Team 70s, Janice is a storyteller who writes plays, performs stand-up, and helps teams work better together at Vision First, a consulting firm she co-founded. She's also the host of the comedy show Funny Over 50. Now, Janice was at our very first show in 2017, and this is her first show representing Team 70s, having graduated from Team 60s. So please, put your hands together and give her a huge Generation Women welcome, Team 70s.
Oh, Team 70. Let's see if I can do the microphone. Okay. Yeah, let's see. How's that? Is that working okay? There we go. So, every family does have its holiday stories and traditions, and this one was born on a chilly November day in 1991 when my two brothers and I were packing up our family home. Now, a little bit of context. 2 months earlier, in September of 91, I picked up the phone on a Sunday morning to call my mom and dad. When my father answered, I knew my mother was dead. Crazy. She's on the floor and she won't get up, he said. Now, my father, Phil, was an uncommonly good man, and he had standout skills in a crisis. In fact, he was a medic in World War II. But the next day, he would learn that, like his brothers and sister before him, he had Alzheimer's disease. And even in those early stages, his decision-making capabilities had disintegrated. He didn't have the wherewithal to call 911. And, I had actually witnessed the mini mental tests leading up to this. He didn't know what year it was, what season we were in. He couldn't draw the fundamental clock of, say, a first grader. So we did call in an emergency response, but it was too late. We'll never know if an earlier call could have saved my mother. But she was down for a while, quite a while, without oxygen to the brain. And, they put her on a respirator, which is what they do. But frankly, she was brain dead, and we accepted that reality days later. The role of caretaker would fall to me for the next leg of his decline, and there would be many legs to that decline. By the way, at some point this will actually get a little lighter, so hang in there, stand by. This is the hard part, but it will lighten up. So this ushered in a period of kind of extreme disruption that was wrapped up in a kind of profound sadness on the loss of two parents, in a sense, in the same day. I had a 3-year-old, a new business, and now I had a father whose capacity to navigate the world was dissolving by the day. So 2 months later, on this chilly November weekend, my two brothers, Phil and Tommy, and I put their entire lifetime together in trash bins, Goodwill runs, and a few strategic handoffs to each of us. I got their bedroom set, which was made with a kind of solid workmanship you can't find anymore. And my brother Phil took a small desk. Tommy got the swan table and that crazy art that we had bought them that went over it. But what about Linda? Now, Linda and I were the middle sisters of the 4 siblings, sandwiched between Phil and Tom, and she had started a new life in Raleigh, North Carolina, some years earlier. She was newly separated from a toxic marriage, and she was a school teacher, and she was working to reclaim her life and that of her 2 teenage daughters. So no, she couldn't join us on this difficult weekend. So we set aside some furnishings that could work in the apartment she'd just rented. So we dismembered our parents' lives that long weekend. Our dark humor prevailed as we worked our way through every element of their circumstance. There would be strange discoveries. I found a 1953 manual of sex in my mother's night table. By the way, I was conceived in 1953, so I don't know. You can find it on my bookshelf to this day. If you want to know more about from chapter 31, The Cold Woman, I have that information for you. So be in touch. So I laid claim to, there was a certain ladle that we had used all our childhood. It had a red plastic handle that had melted on a burner some busy night that my mother was, cooking for 6 people, which she did like 7 nights of the week. And so at the end of this exhausting effort, we came upon a box of Christmas ornaments, and many of which could be tossed, but there was one that defied logic. Nestled in the center was an unfamiliar ornament, one that it was really, it kind of defied all logic, as I said. It was a virgin birth, you might say. We had never seen this before. It was a Bing Crosby ornament that was ugly and perfect at the same time. It was stored in unblemished plastic, it was on a small pedestal, and it was Bing Crosby in a Santa hat. And he had that iconic look of his from White Christmas. Now, I'm going to do a little side note. Many of you are generations younger, and you might be going, Bing who? So Bing Crosby was a crooner from the 40s and 50s. And if you haven't seen White Christmas, I can heartily recommend it to you. And his rendition of that title song, It's Still a Charm. So we laughed at the utter crazy of having this Christmas ornament, which we had never seen before. And we were delirious from days of effort. We were still raw from our mother's passing and our dad's diagnosis. And this ornament became a kind of strange talisman, invested now with the indelible imprint of this moment in time. And you know what? It wasn't just our despair that it carried. It also captured our very sick and delightful sibling sense of humor. It's finally something that we could mock, something we could riff on as we finish this giant task in front of us. Sure, we could send it to Goodwill, but it was so awful in a great way, we just couldn't part with it. So wait. Linda. Let's send it to Linda to thank her, not for her contributions to this staggering task of the move out. It became sacred to us as we laughed and conspired about how we would get this ornament to her. It carried our resentment, sure, but it also carried our quirky sense of humor, that she'd have to put the ugliest ornament ever on her tree every year. And it was our own kind of scarlet letter, which we were tagging her with in perpetuity. So Linda, she's incredible. She got our message, and she got it loud and clear, and she actually raised us one. She treasured that Bing Crosby ornament. It graced her tree for many years to come, and it was a penance she did in good humor. Now, many years passed as we moved on with our lives, and Bing was a stalwart on her tree each holiday season. And some years back on our Christmas sibling phone call, she confessed that she had dropped the ornament. I know. And it had shattered into a zillion pieces. And those delicate pieces did back then, very, very thin glass. So no more Bing. It was a memory now, like our parents before it. Sigh. So a few years ago, she and I were driving to the beach together, and at some point she said, out of the blue, I wasn't there for you when you needed me with Daddy. I wasn't there for you. I was caught up in my own crap. I just didn't show up for you, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, she said. It was a deeply meaningful moment for me, just to have her acknowledge the responsibility we had carried during that time, the close witness we bore, the extended anguish of it. It had been years since we buried my father, and yet those words meant so much to me. So, Lynn, I know you're streaming tonight. And I've got a surprise for you when I come to visit at Christmas this year. I have scoured the globe, and I found the last existing Bing Crosby ornament, and I'm bringing it to you on Christmas morning. So no matter what the weather is, it looks like it's going to be a white Christmas for you and me. There you go. Thank you.